You guys hear me?
Yes.
What's going on, guys?
Matt can't hear us.
Matt, you good?
Yeah, I can hear y'all.
All right. So we are
I'm
going to
good. I'm
start
good
talking
over here.
baseball. We're going to start talking baseball today, guys, and got quite the little lineup with us tonight. Um, we ready to bring in our guest, or we got something to say before we start?
Just ready to talk some baseball. I know that we've been planning this for quite a few weeks now.
Yes, sir. Should we just bring them all in together, or should we start one by one? What do you want to do? We'll
Let's
start
rip the
one. We'll
Band-Aid
bring them
off.
one.
Bring them
Hey,
in.
bring them all in, man. They've been waiting patiently.
All right. First, we're going to
Yeah,
bring
let's
in
do
Lanny
it.
for Terry. What is up, buddy? How are you?
I am well. Thank you for joining me. As I told you earlier, I am missing Beverly Hillbillies because of you tonight.
Hopefully, you DVR'd it.
I'm
All
not
right.
that
Next, we're
technically
going to bring
savvy,
in.
no.
Next, we're going to bring in a relief pitcher. I've got to meet in person before, Mr. Gurley. How are you?
What's up, fellas? We got to
Hey, how's it
liven
going?
it up here at 9 p.m. this evening. You're bringing a late night. You got to bring some live energy. So here we are,
That's the way we. That's the
dialing
way
from
we do it.
back.
And next, we are bringing in Mr. Alex.
What's up, everybody? Hey, thanks for having me aboard, man. Before we even start, hey, fire intro. Love the intro. That was nice. The video, nice touch. And
I just got it
grilled
live. I just
cheese.
got it last night. Thank
It
you.
was.
Hey, grilled cheese. I brought the energy.
I love.
Cheers.
Oh, there you go. There you go. I see what we're working with now. You get a little. You get a little. You get a little interesting. Bring back to the bus days. Back of the bus.
Love it. Oh, so was that what it was like in the minor leagues? Back of the bus
Good times,
days?
bad times. You had to try to find make it a good time. All the time.
So how long were you down in those minors?
Um, it's enough. I guess enough to. In 20 years, I played 15 seasons in the big leagues. There was a few years up and down, some injuries that pushed me back down there to get healthy again. But uh, yeah, the only place to play this game is in the big leagues. That's for sure.
Lanny, would you say the only place to announce like for the big leagues as well, or is
No.
college level all right?
Well, college level's fine for me right now, but Jason's right. There's a major difference between announcing in the major leagues and announcing in the minor leagues. By the way, talking about Alex talking about the back of the bus, announcers are not allowed in the back of the bus, and they're not allowed in the back of the airplane because the players don't want us to see what's going on in the back. So that was fine. I stayed up towards the front of the airplane, so I didn't have to deal with what was going on in the back.
You had to bring something to the party. Maybe they would have invited you, Lanny. You know what I mean?
Well,
If you're vulnerable, you could have got in. You just have to break through. It's just
yeah.
no.
Well, Willie Stargell invited us to a couple parties when Willie was the captain of the Pirates, but we really felt that it was best that we let the players' party do their thing, and we didn't want to be in a situation where if we saw something that we shouldn't have seen. It's tough when you work. You guys know it's tough for an announcer when you work for the ball club. You want your team to win. You want your guys to do well, and so you'd rather avoid want no part of anything that is going to make it a challenge for you to decide what you do, especially when you're concerned about your credibility with your viewers and your listeners.
As a humanistic side, I think you touched upon it. It's a fine line. There's some unwritten rules, of course, in baseball, and I think you know there are some reporters. Thank you for saying that, Lenny, and respecting some of that. There's some people who try to infiltrate that, and uh, you never know what when you're doing an interview. I've been thrown under the bus a couple of times by a media personnel. It's like they're interviewing you for one reason and they're writing a whole different thing, and it's not cool. For the sake of getting the scoop and being clickbait or whatever you want to call it. It just we have athletes. I don't know, for some reason we're the punching bag for people with whether it's envy, jealousy, whatever. I mean, some guys deserve to have whatever you put out, whatever you put in, put out there. It's gonna be returned. It's not Newton's law, right? If you're a big jerk to everybody, then you're gonna have some of that coming to you. But there's times when you're sitting there going like, how did I become the lightning rod? These guys have families and stuff like that too, and the mental torment. I mean, shit on social media nowadays. You could be just, ordinary average guy doing your thing, wanting to put out something, want to put out a good, some type of content, and people love to bash you or rip you apart. But I think I think Deion Sanders said it best, and he said, he's a pretty confident guy, as we all know, right? But sometimes I think what he said is, don't let my confidence be a reason for your insecurity. I thought that was a really good statement by him. And it can be applied no matter who you are. So it's a tough hat to wear sometimes. To try to be always strong. I guess like nothing bothers you. But we're humans too. You know what I mean?
Well,
Jason, I agree with you.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry, Lonnie. I know you guys were talking. It's even for regular, ordinary guys that have no pro sport experience like Adam, myself, and Josh. It takes a lot of guts to do this type of thing, just to create content and not really worry about what people think of you, and then to it's not always going to be all positive uh, response and feedback. And there's some really shitty people out there that do say really crazy things, but they don't have the balls to sit in front of a camera and put themselves out there in an objective way to really take the criticism.
Yeah, you're right, Matt. Like I said, it's alpha male or not. I mean, I think it's something that I think men struggle with just on a this is not a men's retreat night or whatever, but vulnerability. If you can be vulnerable, I was talking about this earlier today on another show that I was actually on. Um, vulnerability to ask a question, to not know, to admit that you don't know something, or not sit there and it starts in elementary school, right? The kid that wants to learn sitting in front of the class, he can't be faulted. He's like, oh my God, I'm getting something out of this. This interests me. And the kids in the back that are just jagging off, messing around, throwing spit wads at the back of the nerds, quote unquote, the nerd's head. And I say, hey, whether you're somebody that this is pertaining to, or this has relevance to me learning something or being good at an instrument, or I'm going to be a great mathematician or engineer or whatever, you can't hate somebody for like, this is valuable information to me. This is what something inside my soul is telling me to be paying more attention. This is going to be pertinent to me, and this is where it's leading me. So yeah, I think it's great. I think there's more of that's coming about of this. You can sit there and say social media is good, bad, or indifferent. It's all how we use things, right? Drinking alcohol in moderation is not a bad thing. Doing anything that is, whatever for us, it's just that line where you cross over. So it tips the scale a little bit, whether it's determined whether to be good or bad, quote unquote. Who's next?
Alex, do you take criticism being the Marlin guy?
Well, let me follow up with some of the things Jason just said. I was fortunate. I came to the big leagues in 1976, and I stayed for 33 years.
Wow.
And
Wow.
I when I first came up, I had an opportunity to share ideas or to garner some important information from guys like Vin Scully and Jack Buck and Harry Callis and Ernie Harwell. And, Jack Buck told me when I first came up to the big leagues, he said, make sure that the first time you meet a player isn't the first time you need something. And I know that was tremendous advice. I will say, to follow up on what Jason's saying, I did experience that where there were a lot of players, not a lot, but there were a number of players that I met throughout my career that just assumed that if you were radio, television, newspaper, that you were media, and therefore you couldn't be trusted. And so there was that painting of all of us that were covering baseball, with one brush, and I thought that was most unfortunate because I was always trying to, even in the visiting clubhouse, I was trying to go in and meet guys on the other team because I like to tell stories, and I had the door slammed on me a number of times because I was media, and it got very frustrating, when that happened. So I think it happens, both ways. There quite obviously, there are a number of individuals, men and women, who their agenda in covering a sports team is totally different. But I always like to believe that if you were the voice of a team, if you were the broadcaster for a team, and you were traveling with the guys 162 games, that you like to believe that they cared as much about you as you were trying to care about them, and that you have a family, and that, I was pleased because, some of the guys from the 79 championship Pirate team, like Willie Stargell and Dave Parker and Phil Garner and Ed Ott and those guys, they would very often come to me and say, hey, how's the family doing, Lanny? And yet, as the years went on, I found that less and less happening, and I was disappointed by that. I was, again, when you travel with a team and you're going through the same challenges they are, you're on the red eyes, you're getting into hotel lobbies 3 o'clock in the morning, and you're away from your family like they are, and some players understand that, and they make you feel comfortable, and then some could absolutely care less.
Wasn't it though? When you're winning, I think everything can be a lot more lighthearted. Even with the media, kidding around with the media, the atmosphere always in the clubhouse. I'm sure you've experienced both sides of it, Lanny. I know I have. We won 5 games in April when I was with the Braves in 2015, and it was hard, man. It was like, holy cow, we're on pace to win 30 games this year. Great. So there was real sour grape kind of feeling, and there's nothing really good to report, right? So the last thing you want to do is it's hard to talk and find the good in anything when it's that bad. But I think that is part of the media's responsibility is to paint the guys. People don't want dramatics. I mean, if you're looking for sports entertainment, for the drama stories, you're in it for the wrong reason. People try to get away from the news and the television and the politics and the crap that they might have dealt with, or health issues or what have you. Right? We have real life is happening, but everybody says baseball is too long. Well, can you please tell me that 3 hours of being around a game or a sport that you really love to be entertained, we got to find the good in that somewhere. Where there, I played baseball for a living. I played a game for a career, made a career out of a game. But I loved throwing people a ball, seeing a kid light up when you signed his baseball card, stuff like that. Even helping a reporter. I remember guys going like, "Man, I need a story, girl. Can you help me out?" I said, "Yeah, man, but just go easy on whoever you're writing whatever about because he's just having a bad day, and you try to paint good light." I'm not bagging on the media because there was a lot of media that there were really a lot of good people. And it is funny that do get on your side, but then it's funny how players become media, right? There's a lot of players that jump that line, and those guys that probably do talk or say, "Hey, there's a career in broadcasting, so you never really want to burn a bridge with the media on any level. The power of the pen can hurt.
So that would be like John Wayner.
Well, I've worked with a lot of former players, and the great thing for me was I learned a lot about the game from other players like Jim Rooker and Steve Blass and Bob Walk and John Wayner. Um, my expertise was my ability to call the game. And so as I evolved, you can imagine when I first came to the big leagues in 1976, there was an awful lot about the game I didn't understand and didn't know. But fortunately, I was alongside some great people. Chuck Tanner, the manager of the Pirates, my dear friend Jim Leland, who's been my best friend for a long time in baseball. And as I said, my guys I worked with, the color analysts I worked with, I didn't come off like I knew the game. I wanted to learn the game from them. I can say, having done 5,000 major league games, I think I know the game pretty well. And back to Jason's point about, one of the things that I was disappointed about later in my career, particularly, was there weren't enough people like Jason to throw a ball to a young kid or to come out and sign autographs. I saw too many major league players late in my career that spent 3-4 hours a day playing cards in the kitchen and didn't come out of the clubhouse until it was time for infield practice, and then went right back in the clubhouse and played more cards, and then came right out just before the start of the game. And I never understood why those guys, once in a while go out and sign some autographs. And when I asked some of the players why they didn't sign autograph, they said, "Well, those people are selling my autograph." And I said, "Well, first of all, I mean, so you're making a good living, and if somebody makes a few bucks off you, but we have to, in all of our sports teams, I guess I'm naive. I believe that we have to connect with our fan base. I know Jason agrees with that, and but unfortunately, there are a good number of players that have no desire to connect with the fan base.
I think it's just knowing you're picking your spot. You know what I mean? Funny story. I'll tell you a little funny story because, like, in the beginning, before you even hit arbitration or free agency, you're under very little negotiating power, especially in the big league. So getting an extra 25 grand here or there and is astronomical numbers. But even when you had a good year before you reach those marks, those bench stone marks in the players' salary, a funny thing, connecting with the fans was easy because you're sitting there going like, well, hey, I know this guy got this, and you do all that comparison game, the ego thing, and I should be making more money. And you excited to make as much money as possible because you don't know when your career could be over. So one thing I do, the cost of a Major League Baseball was what, $15-$20 or whatever. So if I got shorted what I thought I should have got, I was like, hey, the fans are going to benefit because I'm throwing every baseball out that I can to make even up for that. But, just a funny tidbit, like I said, I did that regardless. But yeah, it was a funny way to just tease the club. But hey, man, you don't think I'm worth that? Okay, well then every baseball I get during BP is going up in the stands.
Hey, I wanted to touch base on a little bit of everything that Jason and Lanny said. Like what Jason was talking about the duration of the game. It kind of like one of the new rules that they're implementing this year is that the pitching clock, right? And they'll penalize the pitcher and the hitter. And I'm with you guys. I'm old school mentality.
Yeah, I hate it.
I love the fact that you can watch baseball and it has no clock. I was watching Game 6 of the Venezuelan finals, the LVBP. It was Caracas versus La Guaira, and it was 5 hours, 11th inning, walk-off home run, epic. Like it was worth every out, like every inning. Like I love to watch baseball in all different types of aspects, whether it's college, whether it's high school, whether it's Major League Baseball. Obviously, nothing compares to Major League Baseball, but I'm excited about the World Baseball Classics right around the corner. It bugs me that they're trying to adapt the game of baseball from like what we originally had. Like I hate that they took the collision at home plate, for example. How many epic game endings have we had like that? Like in Marlins history when Pudge caught the ball from Conine Like I remember reading beer everywhere. So it's important to maybe modernize the game a little bit, but I love the fact that it has no clock, that you can show up. The game's at 7, you show up at 4. It's kind of like my yoga place. Where's your happy place? People talk about Disneyland. I like to go to a baseball field and watch a game, and I just feel relaxed. And
If it's
sometimes I walk out of there pissed.
fifth inning, right? You can leave in the 5th inning if you got to go. I mean, but hey, 20 seconds, what is that really going to make a difference in your life? You get 20
Yeah.
seconds back.
I got to tell you guys, I disagree with you wholeheartedly. I think the game is too long. I think that if you remember the 1960 World Series games took 2 hours and 30 minutes. Games are now 3 hours and 30 minutes. And your point, Jason, about if you want to leave in the 5th inning, leave. Well, the point of the matter is that baseball's not doing a good enough job of capturing young people. And one of the reasons is because a dad takes his son and daughter to the ball game, and at some point he's got to leave. And so when you talk about a 5-hour game that wins on a walk-off in the 11th inning, you want the young kids to see the end of the ball game. And if they get there it's for a 7 o'clock game and it's now 10 o'clock, 10:15, and they've been in their seats for 3 hours, I believe it's a major problem for the game.
Yeah, but I'll tell you what, more than that. Sorry to cut you off, Lanny. Here's my theory on that. If you got 40% of the games is walks, strikeouts, and home runs, right? You got a lot of walks. I think Greg Maddux, the best icon to say. I mean, this guy threw 200. I saw a stat 236 starts without issuing a walk. Look how many walks are in the game. That's 4 pitches minimally. All right, strikeouts are 3. You go 3 and 2. All these guys are just rearing back. There's no spotting up 86 to 88. Everybody's rearing back, trying to blow the ball by people, and that's what's making the game longer. It's not the pitcher taking a sign or anything.
Jason,
We got pitching changes.
It's not one thing, okay?
It's not one thing.
It's a whole.
No,
I mean, when Jason Kendall was a Pirate, he stepped out of the batter's box every pitch and did this to his batting glove. How stupid was that? Okay, how unnecessary was that? And so there's a whole slew of things where guys that want to look good on television and they delay the game. And if it means that we have a pitch clock in baseball because players are doing those kinds of dumb things, then the game's got to attack
it's
it
not
somehow.
dumb though all the time. Is that sometimes guys have the way to get set. But if you look at the intensity of being a player, when you get spikes on there and you got 30,000 people jarring at you and you got to live in that's your living, it might be a different lens. I understand the fans' lens. I understand the media's lens. But put your lens of being in that player's shoes sometimes, and you don't know where he's at. So that's where, again, I can say that as a player, sometimes you needed to take an extra second to gather yourself to make a pitch, or you needed that extra second to gather yourself to get yourself, right in the batter's box. There's no time limit in baseball. There was never, when it was invented, a time limit. If it's because of TV, media, commercials, whatever, the game of baseball is 9 innings. There's no time limit. They want to set a time limit on it, put a time limit on it. If it says a 3-hour game, then it's over in 7 innings. If that would be the solution.
That's not right, though.
2 things real quick. I wanted to talk about what for Lanny. Man, you must have hated seeing Nomar Garcia-Parra step into the batter's box with everything he did with the gloves and the bat. Anyway, and I think that we shouldn't have to rush the players or the pitchers. Like, I think it's a little excessive to have 10 relief pitchers come in. No, like now they have the minimum of phase 3 batters, which I think is cool. But I like the fact that players should be able to take their time. Now they're being rushed. Like a perfect example last year was Jazz Chisholm. They were playing the Cardinals. Marlins were playing the Cardinals. And the umpire started clapping at him. He's like, step in the box. Let's go. Right? And, like, he was about to penalize him. And, like, Jazz is telling him, hey, just chill out. Shout out to Jazz, who's on the cover of MLB The Show. And then, boom, Jazz hits a home run. So it was kind of cool to, like, not fall into that pressure of the umpire. Like, I understand he's trying to put, like, the authority into the game. At the same time, like, you got to respect what the player's going through. It's like, yo, you're not going to rush me. Thousands of fans come here to come and see me. You don't know where they're coming from. This is their opportunity to see the best of the best. So I don't think it should be that rushed.
Yeah, well, first of all, I think that's a wrong attitude. They're coming to see you, or coming to see a player. I don't think that does baseball any good to have that attitude. Second of all, remember now what baseball is trying to do And I'm not telling you that I'm legislating all of. There are a lot of things that I don't agree with in baseball. But the fact of the matter is that now, because pitchers have taken time or batters have taken time, they have now changed the essence of the game in that a pitcher has to stay in for more than one batter. Okay? And so if you're a manager and you bring the right-hander in to pitch to the right-handed batter, and then the next hitter in the lineup is a left-handed batter, you can't bring the left-handed pitcher in. And that's a major problem. And I know this because I've talked to major league managers within the last 6 months, guys that I have friendships with, and they pointed that out to me. They would be driven crazy if they could not make the righty move and then follow up with the lefty move. So with all of this delay in baseball, for whatever the reason is, it is causing other problems that are going to impact players and managers and coaches.
Well, I'm glad I got to borrow it when I did because it wasn't this complicated. It was not this complicated.
I was hoping that I could interject on this. I know that as a fan, and I know that we do, in a way, want the game to speed up. But if you're a true baseball fan, I can speak for myself and for Josh. We grew up loving the Orioles. That was our first love before we became football fans. There's so many intricacies in baseball in itself, and it's not a fast-paced game. Everybody looks to the NFL as the standard bearer for how a game is supposed to be paced, and I know it's apples and oranges, but you can't speed up something that has that many nuances because you're going to ruin the effect of the game. Most baseball fans go to the game because they're fans of the game. But if you're taking your children, you want them to see how everything's done at the highest level, and hopefully they develop the love for it. But the thing is,
hold on a minute. How you really telling me a 9 and 10-year, 11-year-old you're going to try to teach them the nuances of the game? No, if they don't understand
they need to see it though. They need to see it.
But that's my point is that the young, if you don't create a young fan base that loves the game for what it is and following, by the way, and Jason talked about all the walks, all the strikeouts, all the home runs in baseball. I thought we were supposed to pay tribute to those 5-star players that could catch the ball, that could hit the ball, that could throw, that could run. Remember, they all had the 5 tools, right? We used to bask in the glow of Ozzie Smith making great plays at shortstop. We don't need that anymore because they're just hitting the ball out of the ballpark or striking out.
I think we'll have to shift. It may bring back some athleticism. I think that's one thing to bring it back. But I don't think what's causing the shift? We're focused on the pitching now. I got to defend my pitchers. I don't want.
I started this discussion with Jason Kendall.
I don't want to watch a 17-14 ball game. That's a first score. That's a first quarter NFL score. That's going to take a long time. Everybody says, "Oh, the beauty of the home run. It's boring. Let's juice up the player." No, let's take that away. Let's juice up the baseball. It's just adding more fuel to the game. That makes it longer too. It's not the pitchers and the pitching changes. It's all the whole cookie, man. It's the whole batter. It's a whole mix of everything.
That's what I said about 5 minutes ago. It is not about one aspect of the game. It's about all aspects, including television commercials. And why are there more TV commercials? Because players are making so much money that teams have to get their rights fees from television. And that's happening in the NFL, and it's happening in the NBA and the NHL all along. The reality is that we are. I mean, let me ask you this question: where are we going with this gambling? Okay, are people watching sports now because they want to watch the game and root for their team, or are they watching sports because they got money bet on it?
It's two different sets. I mean, it's two different types of fans. It's both.
Well, they're appealing to the masses, right? If you're trying to grow the game, and you just said you're trying to appeal to the masses, there is a lot of money in the game, and the money's kind of. Are we at that tipping point at how much money is enough? What is enough? What's enough? What's enough? It's a different brand of baseball. You can't compare what it was. That's history. That's what made the game what it is today. Theo Epstein even said, he goes, I kind of ruined all this metrics in the game It took away the bunt. It took away the base stealing, the strategy of the game. Nobody wants to watch a 2-1 ball game. If you ask surveyed a lot of people, they don't want to watch a 2-1 ball game anymore.
Well, that's an overgeneralization. The
Is
fact of
it?
the matter is,
Everybody's saying.
no. If you had a chance to, in the old days, you had a chance to watch Don Drysdale against Bob Gibson in a 1-0 ball
We're
game.
not there now, Lenny.
I know we're not there, but what I'm saying to you is that there are so many aspects of this game that have been changed dramatically. But the reality, I go back to my original point. The game cannot survive in every market, okay? It cannot survive in 30 markets if there is not some way to attract a young person. It is true with the Roman Catholic Church. It is true with baseball. It is true with all aspects of life. If you don't appeal to young people, somehow, some way, you cannot survive in your sport.
But we keep sidebarring. There's a lot of things that are out there now that people can put their time into. It's not just sports anymore. There's a lot of things. People in South Florida, do you want to go sit in a hot stadium before it was domed, or in Texas, or do you want to go to the beach, go jump on your boat, go to on your boat at a lake? There's a lot of things that you have choices to do, rather than go sit at 3 hours in a ball game and you get a cold beer and then you sit down and it's hot and you're distracted. Can you host a team in a certain city like Orlando, Florida, competing with all these other things that are competing against Mickey Mouse? So we could sit here and sidebar it up, but if you really go back to what is beautiful about our game is the game. Did we change it? Yeah, the brand of baseball is different from the time that it was invented to the game that's going to be played in 2023. They're going to constantly try to make changes to appeal. And too many people are turning that dial and the tune-in knob, just like when you listen to a radio station. It could be a little fuzzy on one side, a little fuzzy on the other side. But when you get it right, boy, the game is so great, isn't it? And I think people start getting so far into it, and this is why, no offense to any media, this is why players don't want to get caught up in all the talk shows and the this and the that. It's too much noise in our head already. And that's why guys don't want to do that. We don't want to listen to all this stuff. It's like, think of a pink elephant. Don't think of a pink elephant. It's what happens to a player. You hear all this stuff. Stay away from it. That's why players stay away from media, because they don't want to hear all this talk.
Do you guys think that baseball is headed towards the right direction, or would you your opinion would be it's not? And what have your thoughts been on the commission? I don't know if you guys can talk about that, but I just feel like he's not steering the ship as well as it should be.
You're talking about the commissioner.
Yeah.
No, the commissioner doesn't run the game. The Players Association runs the game.
But who all right, so yeah, the Players Association has to get aboard with on the same page with MLB, correct? Who proposes the ideas? MLB and the Players Association get together and they
any idea that the commissioner's office or ownership has to be approved by the Players Association, and the players have to get something out of that deal. The problem also with baseball is that the major markets don't care about competitive balance, and the players don't care about competitive balance. And the players will tell you that they care about competitive balance, but they don't. They will tell you, if they're in Pittsburgh, for example, that they want to be a Pirate the rest of their lives, and that's not true. They just tell that because the media, because the agent tells them to say that, and then
I signed a free agent back with the Pirates, so Lenny, you can't say that about me. I had a chance to go to L.A., Toronto, which was my childhood team, and the Chicago Cubs, and Jerry Sheffield looked at me like I had four heads. I said I wanted to stay in Pittsburgh. So that's not true about me. All right. So I loved it here. I still live here.
You're one of the few, Jay. You're one of the few.
No, there's a lot of guys. I'm so happy for Kutch. We got him back.
Guys, no, there's not a lot of guys. There's not a lot of guys that. I mean, look at the '70s. Look at the guys that played in the '70s that are still in Pittsburgh. Okay, that stayed in Pittsburgh. Grant Jackson, Steve Blass, Jim Rooker, Manny Sangue, and it goes on and on and on. That is not going to happen anymore. You are not going to see former Pirates living in Pittsburgh anymore. It's just not going to happen. And that's because too much of it has changed in that regard. I mean, let me ask you this question: Neil Walker, when he left the Pirates, he said to the media, "I'm not going to give the Pirates a hometown discount." Why not? Why not give them a hometown discount? First of all, if you stay in Pittsburgh, you can live in Pittsburgh a lot cheaper than you can live in New York or Chicago or Los Angeles. And plus, your parents get to see you 81 home games in Pittsburgh. So why not give Pittsburgh a hometown discount?
I love your fire, man. This is what gets talk shows going because this is passion about sports. There's 5 steps that every player wants to go through. And I don't care what sport you're in. All right. You want to get drafted. Then you want to make your big league debut, right? Then you want to play every day. You want to be an everyday player. That's step number 3. You want the big contract or the free agency or whatever, and then you want to win the ring. When you build a core around a team, and we'll use Pittsburgh. We keep bringing up Pittsburgh, and it's a topic always here on every radio station here coming into the season. When you have a payroll of $35 million compared to one guy, one pitcher on let's say the Mets or whoever else, and they're making $35 million a year, it's not the ceiling, okay, that matters. It's the one. I think it's the bottom. You should have a league salary, a team league minimum as far as what I call it, $100 million payroll. There's got to be a floor to keep some of those players because it's not. I didn't want to be traded. I didn't want to leave. I pushed Joe Hanrahan out of here. Why? Because I was only making $1 million. He was making $7 million. They didn't want to pay $7 million in the back end of the bullpen. So it's not the players that don't want to stay here. It's not the players. Sorry, I disagree.
100,000% they need to add a floor.
Jason, do you think that's sustainable though?
Is what
to have a salary floor for? I mean, I'm just going off of looking at it from a business perspective. There's teams like Tampa, Baltimore, Pittsburgh to a degree that don't have these big market, quote unquote, big markets. You guys played, and I'm not. It can all be a matter of opinion and subjective nature, but wouldn't that really cripple some franchises from possibly being able to stick around as a major league team if they had to have a payroll such as $100 million floor? Because not every team has.
You can't have a floor if you're not going to have a ceiling. And the players are not going to allow you to have a ceiling. Because if you have a ceiling, one player can't get $35 million. I'm telling you, the Players Association runs the game. And until the Players Association goes in and legitimately wants to improve the quality of the game, you're not going to get better.
But not every team has the outside funding to sustain that big of a payroll. Not every team has their own network.
Okay.
The Yankees have their own network, just to give an example. So does Boston.
No, every team has its own network. It's just that the Pirates aren't making from AT&T Sports what the Yankees are making from the Yes Network, okay?
Right, bigger markets.
But like I said before,
but some of these owners aren't just making money from networks either. We got multi-billionaires or corporations or media companies. The Atlanta Braves are owned by a Denver-based media company. Okay, so it's if people want to, and some people that own these sports teams use them as tax write-offs. All right, we have the Pittsburgh Pirates has what I heard as, and I could be wrong, but it's the 10th wealthiest owner in the game. The 10th. If you're in the top 10 of anything, I think that's okay. So he doesn't want to come out of pocket for his team. He doesn't want to invest that money into his team. That's his right. And you know what? If he's getting money from the LA Dodgers or the New York Yankees, however that works in the whole system of the game, and he decides not to invest it in his team, he has that right.
But remember that I made the point before, and it's true. The major markets do not want competitive balance. The Yankees and the Dodgers and the Cubs and all the other major market teams are glad that there are teams like the Pirates and Kansas City that they can beat up on, okay? They want that. And so in addition to the major, and if you say to the New York Yankees, if we're not careful, we're only going to have 24 teams in about 10 years. And the Yankees are going to say, fine, we're going to be one of them. And now we'll split up the TV money among 24 teams as opposed to 30 teams. So
Well, they've already
when
done that in
players,
the minor leagues. They're cutting kids' chances to develop that might, just because they're not good right now, they might need a little bit more time to develop. They're cutting minor leaguers teams. They shrunk that down.
wait a minute, Jason, you really believe that a major league team can become a quality major league organization by merely developing minor league talent?
You missed my point, I guess. You missed my point. What I'm saying is, if they're trying to test all these rules that we're talking about in the minor leagues before they bring them to the big leagues, what's the sense? We're just a commodity that they do some testing on. So what I'm saying to you is if they're cutting off teams and cutting off talent to develop, and they're going to defragment teams being even represented in the big leagues, yeah.
I don't follow you there.
Huh?
I don't follow where you're going with that. I mean, we're talking about major market teams not caring about competitive balance. We were talking about players association. You talked about wanting the ring. You talked about wanting the ring. Okay. The fact of the matter is that unless you are a star player from the Pirates and can find a way, like Garrett Cole did, or like McCutchen to a point, can find a way to get out of Pittsburgh, that you have no chance to win a ring.
I wanted to touch on a couple of things. I think it has to do with baseball maybe dying a little bit, like the passion not being around as much as I feel sometimes like we're dinosaurs, right? There's not as the modern fans aren't as passionate, and I think maybe that can have a domino effect on, like, no disrespect to no professional scouts, but maybe they're not as passionate and know about it. Like when you watch a game, you can tell, all right, this kid has it, this kid doesn't have it. You can tell by the swing, by the pitching, you know what I'm saying, by the movement, the fielding. You get to appreciate all these different things. That's why I think, like, we need to implement more, like, love, more passion into the next generation, so that they can fall in love with the game how we love the game. Because it saddens me to hear what Lanny's saying, that maybe they go down 24 teams. I hope not. I read an article the other day that they were thinking about expanding Major League Baseball to 32 teams, but that might happen in 10 years down the road. You know, it'd be cool to see baseball in Nashville. The Nashville Stars, I think, is what they were going to call it, and they're looking at Montreal. So if they really get together and they think about like logical things as a baseball fan, like what really bothers you, you know, as an older fan, right? It's been 25, 30 years for me watching baseball, and like I know that's nothing compared to you guys, but it's like, you know, when you talk to the modern fan, it's like, oh, you know, DH, oh, cool, more runs. But you miss the essence of the game, the hit and the run. And you know, guys double stealing, somebody stealing home plate. Like, you don't really see that anymore just because of the hits and the home runs and the strikeouts. Like, that's the sad thing about it. Like, the DH got implemented, and yeah, it added more offense, but you took away from the essence of the game, like the original rules. Like that was the whole beauty about having an American League and
Alex,
having a National League.
But Alex, we were talking before about the shift. Well, how do you eliminate the shift? By having your big hitters drop down a bunt. Okay, but heaven forbid I should ever bunt to do something against the shift. That's not my game. Well, that's ridiculous. Are you going to win games and you're going to do everything you possibly can to win baseball games?
Yeah, you got to do
Lanny,
everything possible
they did put the rule in this
like,
year where it's got to be 2-2.
What?
The infielders now the shift. They restricted the rule this year. They have to have two infielders on each side of the bag at second.
Well, I understand that, but I mean, with the fact of the matter is, we were talking before about the need to legislate the game. What causes the need to legislate is what has been transpiring in the game, and yeah, we all agree that it's great to see a guy double steal and to put the bunt down and the sacrifice bunt and all these other aspects of the game, but they've been lost in the game. Just like the point before I made, that you can't bring in a right-handed pitcher to face a right-handed batter. He's got to stay in the game now to face the left-handed batter.
I get what you're saying there with the pitching, for sure, 100%. Like, I think it's kind of bogus that they had the 3-batter minimum rule, but I think it got a little ridiculous sometimes. It would be like 10 call to the bullpens, and that's why you get so many commercials, and that's what slows down the thing. Like I get what you're saying, but there has to be like a little cap of maybe, all right, maybe you only have a limit of 8 relief pitchers per game. I'm just throwing that out there.
I don't know. I thought the game was fine when I was growing up watching it and wanted to be that every bit of that. I thought it was fine just the way it was.
When you were 10 years old, what decade were you 10 years old?
About 1986.
Okay.
Jeez.
Okay, we're 40 years away from that, and look what's transpired in the last
Yeah,
40
no,
years.
I don't, Lenny. I'm with you, man. I listen. We can sit here and be angry about it and upset about
I'm
it.
not angry about it. I'm trying to be passionate about it from the standpoint. Let me ask you this question, okay? Well, how is it that everybody that's a football fan, every age they are, will watch the playoff games even if their team is not in it? It has always been my contention. If you want to know if a town is a real good football town, then ask yourself, do those people that are fans of that team, do they still watch the playoffs after their team is eliminated? With the Penguins, if this is a great hockey team, great hockey town, then that means that the fans will watch the Stanley Cup playoffs after the Penguins are eliminated. And then ask yourself, if this is a great baseball town, okay, will Pirate fans watch the playoffs and the World Series after the Pirates have been eliminated altogether? And the answer to that is a resounding no. There are not a lot of people that are watching the playoffs and World Series like we did when we were growing up. We couldn't wait to get home to watch the World Series. Of course, it was on at the daytime in that situation. We couldn't wait to get home to see the World Series. Didn't matter who was in it, it was the World Series. That doesn't exist anymore.
That's facts. I think it has to do with the sports itself.
I think that's the best, watching that trophy come out. I mean, that's why I watch it, for the trophy to come out, the presentation. Why not? I want my teams that I root for in it, but it doesn't always happen. And in baseball, it hasn't happened.
Wait, I'm not following. You're saying you're only watching the end of the Stanley Cup just to see the trophy come out?
I mean, I watch it for the game, but I only watch it for the trophy to come out.
I think you watch the playoffs because it's
watch
elite.
The presentation. I wish. Go ahead. Alex, were you talking?
Yeah, I was saying that you watch playoff baseball, whatever sport, because it's elite. It's the top. It's the best athletes going at it, and like the beauty of it is like you can see the number 1 seed get knocked out by the 8 seed. You know what I'm saying? Like I love seeing underdog stuff, but you also like to see like if a powerhouse team comes in and they win it, and rightfully so, great. But anything can happen. Like the Philadelphia Phillies last year, nobody was really counting on them. Everybody was talking about their defense was suspect, and their offense was great. Did they have enough pitching? And then look at them. They won. They represented the National League.
But do you know how bad the ratings were for the World Series last year? How can the game stimulate? How can the game survive if everybody in baseball, all the fans, all the guys that say they're baseball fans, aren't sitting on every pitch of the World Series, whether their team's in it or not?
Maybe some fans just feel some type of way about the Houston Astros, like they got over the hump, but maybe they still feel some type of way about the whole cheating scandal and how Major League Baseball took care of it. They talked about the World Series championship being a piece of metal. How are you supposed to feel? Maybe some fans, I've seen them myself. They're like, I'm not gonna watch them. I vetoed the Astros. Like it's cool with me now that like they got over the hump, but
our attention spans have minimized since this thing came into place. Because there's bones in the back of people's heads, even when they're at a game, even a sporting event. I went to a Penguins game, and I've been to NFL games and all that stuff, and people are doing this while they're at the game. They're not watching the game, even though they're there. So attention spans are minuscule compared to when the sports entertainment was, we're to go back to 40 years ago, when it was the show and you're at the show, that was the big deal. When you're got to check your Facebook messages and, if my bet came in or I got an email or I'm getting a text or whatever, you're competing with so many different things. And that's my point. Our attention spans are minimal. So if you want to minimize the game and you want to dwindle things down and say, it's too long, we can't do this. But you're fighting other things than it's just the game. It's not just the game that's bad. It's the attention span of everything else that we're
Do
competing
you
against, not just baseball, basketball, football, or hockey. It's this phone and the media and everything else that we now have at our fingertips. 100%.
now? Do you feel that you've been on the field? Do you feel like getting rid of getting rid of bringing everyone to the one side of the infield is going to help make the game go faster? Because they're
I don't
not going
think
to be able to bring them all over, and that takes an
I'm
extra.
I'm excited that they're taking the shift away because, like Lanny was saying, we used to judge and scout. The guys used to get drafted based on a subjective 80, score and off athleticism. I think that you're going to see those plays up the middle. I used to be a sinker ball pitcher when I came up as a starting pitcher. If I gave up a base hit up the middle, tip my cap to the guy. He did a great job, hitting a base hit up the middle. But you know what? I got a damn good shortstop that can have range and dive behind second base, get up and on his knees or whatever, and make a stellar play like Ozzie Smith and Derek Jeter and all those guys can and could. I think we're going to start to see even that because there's big freaks of nature. There's anybody that plays a major league sport in some capacity, you're a freak of nature. God gave you a ability to do some superhero crap out there, right? So now, if we're taking that away from what players have the ability to do, okay, whether you drop a bunt and show off your speed, but the biggest anxiety for a pitcher in the brand of baseball, let me go stop for a second. Let me give you another thought on top of this. My biggest anxiety coming up as a starting pitcher when I was drafted was making a pitch with a runner on base, having to decide what if we had a bunt play on. There were so many things of capacity you had to do. Now the guys just sit there and go, I'm just going to rear back and throw 100. I know this guy's trying to hit a, donkey, excuse my language, donkey dick a home run out of the ballpark because that's what everybody wants to see. Okay? The game is way different than it is. And I don't know, you might miss it because you're scrolling on your phone, and it's okay because I'll get the highlights and see the replay. So it's sad. And Lanny, I appreciate it. I feel your pain because I'm there with you. I can only watch 3 or 4 innings and I played the game. I don't like the brand of baseball. I hope we get back to the exciting things because not everybody is a Giancarlo Stanton or an Aaron Judge who's just out there, or nobody's ever a Garrett Cole throwing 100 miles an hour pitches out there. What about the guy that is a Greg Maddux? He's a Hall of Famer, struck out 3,000 guys, but he wouldn't be considered sexy nowadays, and he's a Hall of Fame pitcher. Would the players of yesterday? I'd be curious to talk to George Brett, who made $1.5 million in his heyday. What would he be getting this day? Wade Boggs, some of these good hitters. What would Nolan Ryan be getting? Guy that threw 7 no-hitters, or I don't know. It's all this stuff that you're trying to compare and bob and weave eras and payrolls, and it's so much that's debatable. And it's like, do you love the game and appreciate the game? You have to love and appreciate it for what it is now. Hopefully, like I said, it boils down to, do you love and respect it? I think players do. I think the game is in good hands. I know when I left it, I was like, guys are working harder than ever. I mean, I look at Marcus Stroman, say whatever you want, like him, don't like him. I haven't seen a guy work as hard. He had such a routine. I respected it. It was like stuff that I didn't even know about. So the game's always evolving, and guys are taking new things. I mean, you take that in track. How does the world record in track get beaten? I don't know. There's new techniques. There's new things that are going, but somehow somebody's out there making it going to be faster. It's going to be bigger and stronger, and that's just the way it is. I think it's just the evolution of everything. It's not just in sports.
Speaking of evolution, one of the new rules they're implementing is the pickoff attempts. They're limiting it to 3 max. What's your opinion on that as a former pitcher? On your 3rd attempt, if you don't get the guy, he's given second base.
Well, I think if you throw over that much, you're focusing on the wrong thing. That's either delaying the game and in 3 pitches, that guy, he's either going or he's not going. You know what I mean? I don't know how many more you would really need. So, again, it's such a silly thing to me because if he threw over 4 times, are we going to argue about getting those 3 seconds back? Come on, that's just silly. That's what we're sitting there going like we're splitting hairs on so many different things that you're going like that's why people are getting angry and upset. It's like how many things are we going to talk about to say why is this game terrible? Like, we're making it terrible by talking about all these things that are considered ugly. Oh, look at what they're doing now. Do you believe this? Oh my God. Right? There's so many things you pick apart. It's like, are we all this, unhappy about the game?
Analytics
That's my point. Don't watch it. You don't like it, don't watch it. You don't like it, don't write about it. Don't have a talk show about it. Go do something else. There's plenty of things to just put your time and effort into. I think it's a great sport. I think the game is great. Do I like the brand of baseball? Heck no. I think there were some things that you blend some of the new, you blend some of the old. Cybermetrics, is it good? I think it takes a different litmus on some things. It gives a different view and aspect. It's just like everything else. Do it with modern medicine. Do it with politics. We're carving it apart because everybody's got an opinion. And now we are listening to each other. We're really seeing the voice. So, it's okay it's okay. Let me see your lens. How do you think about it? But you can be right. You can like what you like. You can dislike what you like, but don't argue to the point where you're wrong and I'm right. No, we're all right. You can like what you like. You're allowed to be vulnerable and say, but people are afraid to say that because they're always like, now we're going to have fights in the stands. Oh, you're a Philly fan. You're a Yankee fan. You suck. It's all that. It gets everybody riled up. That's the part of sports that I sit there and I go, what in the hell are we doing? What are we doing? What are we doing, man?
I enjoy seeing other fans from other teams coming. I mean, I know when I worked down at the stadium, I knew when Chicago was coming or St. Louis was coming, there were going to be fans from the other team because they get their tickets cheaper and they could sit down low for what they would pay to sit up high. So they would travel. I don't know if it was like that, Jay, whenever you were here, but that was a big thing. Even whenever Bonds came back to Pittsburgh, that was a big moment. I think, Lanny, you were in the booth when Bonds came back, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. When he was with the Giants?
Yeah.
That was a big moment. There was a lot of Giants fans all of a sudden. So, I mean, people still try to go out and see who they want to see.
I think that's the majority.
When the Yankees came back into town this year, obviously there were large crowds, and when you're dealing with a franchise that you can't get a seat in that home ballpark, then you've got to go and try to follow them on the road. But again, the bottom line to this game, its future, is: are we getting people to the ballpark? Are we getting people that are buying season tickets? Are we getting people to come to the ballpark a good number of times during the course of the summer to watch quality baseball? One of the things that may have been a major problem for Pittsburgh was as we built this great ballpark and we got to a point where we were trying to tell people that you should come to the ballpark to see the skyline. How ridiculous is that? Little stupid things like how many balls go into the water. I mean, what's the deal with that? How many, the game was falling all over itself about the length of home runs. The fact of the matter is, if the ball goes 325 or 475, it's one run, okay? It's not like a 3-point arc in basketball. So, again, I get frustrated, yes, because there are so many aspects of the game that people have lost the essence of. If I'll go back to my original point, if we don't find ways to cultivate people's love of the game and encourage their young people, their children and their grandchildren and their nieces and nephews to come to the ballpark, then there's no future for certain franchises.
When you say we, Lanny, who does that fall on, though? Who does that fall on when you say we? We collectively or we ownership with players? Who's we?
Well,
When you say we? Who?
well,
Somebody's got to be responsible for fixing it. Fans can't fix it.
no,
Fans aren't.
as I said, it is and that's part of the challenge of it, Jason, is that, as I said before, there's no doubt the Players Association runs the game. And until the Players Association, do you think that the players are ever going to go to the commissioner and say, we want the same competitive balance in baseball that they have in the NFL? There is no way the players are going to do that. Never. But the fact of the matter is, because the player agreement in the NFL is better for competitive balance than it is in baseball. No question about it.
I don't think you can sit there. I think it's
Real quick,
fair to say it. Go ahead, buddy. I was just going to say,
do you guys feel that?
So I think we're on a delay or echo. Go ahead, Adam.
Do you guys feel that they sign these players to the contracts so this next, because they'd have to sort out their arrangements of a 13-year contract, $325 million contract? Do you guys feel that they do that on purpose so the CBA can never get fixed?
Well, just there's no salary cap in baseball, right? There is in the NFL.
That's what I mean. But by signing them to long-term deals,
I'm telling you, the
the
players are
they'd have
never
to
going
go
to.
to
The
these
players are
players and
never
try
going
and
to
get
fix
them
the game, and they have to fix it.
Do you think we could if we can't get a ceiling? Do you think that they can at least somehow get a floor that
Well,
guarantees them that they're going to
you can't
spend
have
money?
a floor and not have a ceiling. You can't.
There's no way.
So the multimillionaires that are playing the game, the commodity, which is sells tickets, hot dogs, advertisements, everything, they're responsible to fix what the billionaires are able to pay out. That's what you're saying, Lanny? I'm just trying to understand where the players are responsible for fixing the game.
Well, yes, Jason, you know enough about the Players Association to know that every time, again, they're not going to allow a salary cap.
Okay,
And it's not because of the billionaire owners.
On the plane. Wait, I'm going to put you on the spot, and this is not to get anybody riled up or make it personal. This is all good conversation. This is real talk. If you were a player, and even back in the 70s, I think Al Kaline, some of these guys made $100,000 back in their day. That was a lot of money back in his day, being the top player back then, and how inflation. I'm not a big economics guy, right? And I don't know finances. We don't have all fiscal literacy like some people do in this country. I think we all need a lesson on that. But if you were a player, you're telling me if you were able to get top money, you would give up your salary that you could earn top dollar to give up to somebody else to how would you fix baseball? Basically is what you're saying. Because everybody has a different answer. There's no right answer.
That is not that. See that is not the issue here. Okay, here's the issue. If every major league team has to spend a certain figure and has a cap, that means that some star players are not going to be able to play. In other words, not everybody can play for the Dodgers because the Dodgers are going to have a cap. That means that some of those star players have to go to other teams, which means that the talent finds its way funneling down to Kansas City, Pittsburgh, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, that's what you want, but some of those owners don't want that either. You can't tell me that the owners, if the LA Dodgers and the New York Yankees can continue to spend, they don't care. They'll gladly say, Pittsburgh, keep getting number one draft picks because we're going to trade for them when they're ready to be a Yankee. They don't care.
Well, but how do you sell fans? How do you sell fans on coming to the ballpark if there is no chance whatsoever of their team even making the playoffs, let alone winning a World Series?
Why is
Do
it
you
the
know how
players'
long it's
fault? Why is it the players' fault when the
because
owners
they're
are
controlling the game, Jason.
so
That's why.
the owners are willingly paying these salaries?
They
They're
have no
willing.
choice. They
They have
have
no
no
choice.
choice. Yes, if they want to win, they have
Okay.
no choice.
Okay.
And the
Well, that's
fact of
why
the
there's
matter
no.
is that Mr. Nutting has decided that I can't. He's decided that there's no reason to spend more money because I can't put the amount of money into it I need to win. I can put more money into it, but it won't be to win. It'll be just to make us better. Okay?
Yeah.
And
Well,
that's the
I see
problem
that
as the
point. I
fan.
see that. But that's his stance. The LA Dodgers and the New York Yankees and the top tier teams, they don't agree with what Nutting's doing because they don't care what he's doing. They care
Right, they
what
don't.
they're doing.
They
Because
only care.
New York City
They
and
know
LA
what?
expect to have. They want to go. They want to go to the show. New York wants to go to this show. They want to go to Yankee Stadium. It'll be a long time before their Yankee Stadium has the same amount of fans in the seat, the empty seats.
Jason, let me make this point to you, okay? I am if the Players Association would come forward and create a salary cap, you know who would benefit the most from that? The players that are down at the bottom of the tier, because the money would dry up at the top and have to find its way down to some of the players that are not making as much money. There is a discrepancy in Major League Baseball. Granted, everybody who plays the big league gets a pretty decent salary, okay?
A rookie's
But there's
making almost $1 million.
There's a discrepancy in the major leagues.
For a rookie coming in who's never set foot on a big league field is making almost $1 million. I don't think that rookie who's spent, making peanuts in the minor leagues for I don't know X amount. There's a report. There's an article I would love for somebody to have somebody write an article about a guy who's played. I don't know how many years does it take for some guys to average to get to the big leagues, their road to the show, and they finally get to the big leagues and make $1 million. Well, cost average that million over the time he's had to spend to get to the big leagues. And let's say it's 5 years. Well, then he didn't make $1 million. It took him $200,000 a year to get to the big leagues. Cost average that out. I think those guys are saying, you know what? Welcome to the big leagues. And if you can't eat on $1 million, fans would have a problem, or front office say, "What the hell's wrong with you? Can't live off $1 million?" And then you pay the government takes half of that. Your agent takes a cut of that. You pay all your clubhouse dues. You got your regular house bills. You got your rent in another city. You pay clubhouse dues, taxes in some cities. Pittsburgh has a Pittsburgh athletic fee is a 3% fee. That guy's lucky if he makes $300,000, $400,000 take home net after he's paid I don't know how many years in the minors. And good luck if you get hurt or if you do this or you do that, and cost average that out. That guy's making a pretty good living by getting there, but you better be smart with the money. And you know what? When the guy if the owner's willing to give him a $300 or $400 million contract because he hit 60 home runs and he's the best player in baseball, guess what, Mike Trout? You earned it. You're a poster child for baseball. You can make it. That's American dream. But the owners are making a bunkaboo too. But nobody says about that. Nobody says anything about that. Benny?
Those are like the top prospects, so that get those big deals. What about the guys that don't get the big deals? There's a lot of these minor league players that people don't talk about, that they got 3, 4, 5 guys living in an apartment. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of stuff that these guys go through, and if you can break it into the big leagues, like, it's great. You're showing that you're part of the best, but it's tough. It's tough. Not everybody gets that top prospect money.
Matt, you got anything, guys? Got anything? No.
Hey,
Matt's a correctional officer, and he's been up since 4:50 this morning. So
I was
I
at
didn't
work
realize
at
he
4:50.
was been at work since 4:50 this morning. So
Yeah.
So he might be a little dragging right now.
Yeah, I'm a little dragging. I'm listening to you guys though. I'm hanging in there, man. But
It's
I
good
know
talk, man. I like to talk it up. Listen, anybody's listen. I'm not against anything. Would I like some things fixed? Sure. There's a lot of things in politics. What's right and what's wrong. If it isn't broke, don't fix it. That's
It
the
is
way I'm like.
broke. It is broke.
Okay, well, let's fix it then. Like I said, what's the answer? What's the answer?
I told you. Players Association have to go in and say we need a salary cap.
I doubt that'll ever happen.
But
No, and I
that's
know it won't. I
that's
know
why
it'll
they
never
signed.
happen. I know it'll never happen because the Players Association has run this game for 45 years. And when everybody says about Rob Manfred, the commissioner, or ownerships or whatever, the Player Association runs the game. It is not true. And you guys know that.
That's why
How
they
many
signed
years?
these
I'm just
long-term
telling you.
contract
How many years
deals.
do we need to lock out the players then, or have a strike or whatever to fix
Well, what
it?
they should have, in my opinion, what they should have done in 2020 is they should have shut the game down during COVID and shut it down and say, okay, players, here it is. And they've tried it a couple of times, but back to the ownership. You can't
Well,
get
there you
30
go. There
you
you
can't
go.
get 30 owners to agree on something. And
You
so
just proved my point, though. During COVID, when they said zero fans were in the stands, zero. Okay, nobody could go to the stadiums. It was just empty ballparks, and they were still able to play and pay those salaries. So, what does that say?
they had to. What do you mean I made your point? They had
Or
to.
the answer,
But they would have been better off to shut the game down.
They could afford to, though. The billionaires that are making this money, they were still making money. They're still making money. Lanny, listen, I hear what you're saying. I'm not trying to get you upset about anything. I'm just telling you from the other lens. That's it.
No, Jason, let me make this clear, okay? I'm out of the game, and I've been out of the game for 14 years, okay? And I had a great life in baseball for 33 years, so I have nothing to lose and nothing to gain by this discussion. But I get frustrated. I get frustrated because, very often when these discussions come up, media will go to former players and say, "What do you think?" And I get so frustrated because you can't talk to a player about the problems in baseball because they have what they have is because of the Players Association. And again, there's no doubt in my mind that the Players Association runs the game. No doubt at all. Okay. And only they can fix it.
Okay.
But I think because you said if it's not broke, don't fix it. I don't think the players believe that it's broken.
So, what do you guys think of them going to the bigger bases?
That was a very good transition, Adam.
There's a good segment.
There was a moment of silence, so I jumped on the opportunity to ask. They went from 15 inches to 18 inches.
It's terrible. Why don't they move the mound back to second base, too? And listen, they keep changing things.
I don't think about this right now.
The only plate that's not getting bigger, and again, this is a pitcher talking and take it for what it's worth, then home plate should be bigger, which make the strike zone bigger and make the guys swing better so that we're not having 17 to 14 ball games. And then everybody can go home in 2 hours. That's what everybody wants. It's just common sense. There's common sense, and then there's arguing. It's changing it to make sense. If it makes sense, then yeah, change it.
Well, but Jason, that back in the day with Bob Gibson and Don Drysdale and Sandy Koufax, if you were swinging from your ankles on every pitch, Bob Gibson would drill you. Okay,
correct.
Doesn't happen anymore because that guy in the batter's box is part of our union. He's part of our brotherhood. Doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah, he's also got an elbow pad, shin guards on.
Yeah, and guess who can fix that? The Players Association. Go to management and say the players want to eliminate shoulder pads, et cetera, et cetera.
I wanted to kind of ask you.
Always about the players, man. It's amazing. We're terrible people. Sounds like.
Jason, I wanted to ask you a question, and Adam, I know we talked about this earlier, earlier today. When you bring up the plate enlargement in the strike zone, I know Major League Baseball is tampering with the idea of making a strike zone electronic and not necessarily relying on the home plate umpire. How do you feel about that as a pitcher?
Again, I'm just gonna, all I can say is the brand of baseball that it keeps evolving. I don't care for everything. That doesn't mean I don't like the elements of what it means to me. I love and respect this game. I got to borrow it, thankfully, fortunately, at a time that I could love it. And there was a lot of things going on then. I mean, the big hot button was steroids, and I played through that era. Um, there's been so many changes. I played through three eras: the ground ball era, steroid era, fly ball era, and I don't know what you call this next coming era or whatever. But I love and respect this game. I will always support the game. I love what the game does present and what it brings. It is our America's pastime. If you don't want it to be, then don't make it yours. I don't know. There's a lot of things in this country that everybody's trying to figure out right now. I think sports shouldn't be this strenuous. To me, it's supposed to be about fun. It's supposed to be about getting out and playing catch with your dad. Um, there's so many things. I think, like I said, what I know some of these guys personally, and again, I'll put it, when you got a uniform on, we become less human for some reason because of the broadcast of salaries and, that we're part of a players association and a union that is strong and fights for our rights as players. We're a commodity that without that commodity, there's a lot of things that don't necessarily happen. Just like everything else, it's a strong industry. A lot of people benefit from it, media included. There's a lot of greatness to it. So if you want to put a negative spin on it, go ahead. You can be cynical if you want. I choose not to be. I don't like everything. I can admittedly say I don't like the bases being bigger. What do I think about a digital strike zone? I hate it. I wish the umpire and the manager could go out there, get the crowds riled up, all that stuff. Guys going fisticuffs and dugouts back in the '80s because you could throw, like Lanny said, you could throw inside and guys would get heated. There's things, but with all the money that is in there, I do agree. Guys don't want to get hurt. You can't take out a player and whatever. I don't know. Has the game softened because of the money? I don't know. It's debatable. Like Lanny, Lanny's our a legend in himself, man. He's seen lots of errors more than even me. So, there's things that he doesn't like. So of course it's I can appreciate the guy that says I walked up in my snowshoes back in school into snow 6 feet deep, right? We all sit there and have somebody that because we appreciate our history and we love our past, but we can't live in that past because the past is gone. It's history. What's happening right now? None of us live in the now. We're always working about what happened. What are we doing next? What are we doing next? What about right now? Is it enough? Does this work? Or does this need to change? Should we keep this? It's who's in charge, who's making these decisions. And sorry, unfortunately, in baseball and any sports, we don't get a vote. We don't get a vote. I never voted on any of these rule changes, these time restrictions. Sorry to say, I didn't get a voter sheet of what my players association was fighting for and saying. We learn of this after the fact, but there's so many other things I had to do as a player to be ready for a season. Do we agree on them? We had player reps and stuff trying to represent. There's so many things going on so fast, and forget sports. You could say that in our government, in our healthcare system, in our schools. You can say that about every topic that we bring to the table here and have arguments or debates, whatever you want to call them, conversations.
I like conversation.
Yeah, it's how people wrap themselves around that, and you can see I am not against Lanny. I love his passion because I know he loves this game. He's been in this game longer than any of us here, and that's why I can appreciate it.
That's interesting. That's just an interesting perspective. because it seems like they're trying to modernize everything. And when I heard the digital strike zone, I was just a little, put off by it, and I was waiting for this show to ask you guys, Alex, how do you feel, man? Like, I know that we heard from Jason from the pitcher's perspective. How do you feel about a possibility of a digital strike zone in the near future?
I mean, it's part of implementing to modernizing baseball. But I think about like what Jay was just talking about players and having this players union, like they didn't really get to vote. Is it like something like do the players really get involved and like really look at the rule proposals, or do they just trust the guys, the board guys, and it's like, all right, that's my guy, Tony's my guy, Tony Clark, that's my guy, whatever he says, I'm going with it. And then to like think of it like from the other side, maybe like with Lanny, it's like maybe it's like the players aren't doing their dues and really doing their due diligence and checking out what these rule proposals are, and maybe they can veto these things that, like for example, you wouldn't agree with, because they're just trusting their guy. Like it's like the HOA. If you don't, like a lot of homeowners, if they don't go and really go to these
There
meetings,
you
these
go.
guys are gonna do whatever they want to do.
There you go. If you don't go and you don't participate, your voice is not heard. Same thing. But going back to again, Matt, you're saying do like the digital thing. Is that going to shorten the game, make the game longer, get more controversial? We're challenges, right? We're going to challenge a ball and strike to see it on video, and we're talking about pitching changes and everything else. That's adding to the game's element of lengthening time. You're losing me there on the digital thing because it's played by human beings, not robots. I'm sorry, I don't like that.
What happens when
I'd rather a hitter argue and stand up for himself, because he should know the strike zone and he should get in the umpire's ass if he feels like it.
I just feel like everything is subject to human error, and that's part of every professional sport is to have the element of human error. And I'm not saying making an excuse for it one way or the other, but it just seems like a digital strike zone. You're taking, like you said, the interactive element away from the manager to the umpire to the player to the umpire or the catcher to the umpire, like depending on what the call is. And I just wonder how they would possibly go about relaying what's a ball and what's a strike, and how this is going to be implemented through all 30 teams in each game that they play.
Well, even I think the games we teased with all this cybermetrics. Ian Snell got pulled out of a game. He's throwing a great game in the playoffs, right? Why? Because of cybermetrics or whatever from digital this and that. Is it ruining the game? Is it take? Yeah. I don't like to see all that. I don't. Who wants to see that? But again,
what
when guys
box malfunctions. What happens when this box malfunctions and all of a sudden, like Aaron Judge is up, and then all of a sudden Altuve comes up, and it doesn't register that Altuve's up, and still thinks Judge is up, and all of a sudden the strike zone is over Altuve's head. Like, is someone going to be on top of that to
great
fix it?
Television segments and talk shows, which fuels the players' salaries. And there you go. Why the players' salaries escalate? Because if you keep changing some things up, and you can keep talking about it, right? And then you have more content to drive up the interest and just people being privy to what's going on, whether they have an interest or not, right? But it makes for all these media companies to have all these talk shows, no different than what's the one Whoopi Goldberg's on and all that stuff. I mean, there's no talk shows if you don't have drama and controversy out in the world, right? We're not talking about saving puppies anymore or anything.
No, let me jump in here and tell you something. The reality is that television ratings, radio ratings are down dramatically, and there is a number of reasons for this. And the fact of the matter is that the point about that if there is a talk show talking about sports, there's a good chance that sports show is not all that well listened to anyways, because there are now all these other shows that are on the air. And so the number of people that are watching it they try to sell all these commercials, and they can't make money of it because the commercials are just they're inundating on every broadcast. Um, you're and I'm not in favor of an automated umpire. I'm not in favor of replay use in baseball, which is probably shocking to a lot of people because of how it's been used so much in football. But I just don't. I think that the game ought to be called by human beings, and if the umpire calls him out, then he's out. That's it. No replay. But I do West Virginia baseball every year, and inevitably 3 or 4 times a game, the umpires are going to the dugout to check and see if the umpire got it right or not. And I think that's wrong.
Well, television's the new radio. Like I said, this thing right here is what everybody's changing and getting their sources of information from. It's the attention span is down. I think if I had to blame anything, and there's all these implementations on, if they can figure out how to control the game and interest from this thing, then you got it. This is
Well,
the culprit right here, in my opinion.
Well, but Jason, let me make this point to you, and without trying to get too heavy, the fact of the matter is, if there's a family at the dinner table, whether it be in their home or it be in a restaurant, and if the parents are having dinner and the kids are on their phones, there's something wrong there. There is something dramatically wrong there
100%.
as it relates to what we're supposed to be teaching our young people about life.
100%. It's in every facet. But the truth of the matter is this phone is ruling how we gather our information, what we are blasted with, information, what we're directed towards.
Well, then, if you're certain about that, then we ought to do things to make sure that that doesn't continue to be the issue. If we believe that honesty is the best policy, we should never turn away from honesty. If we believe that hard work and perseverance are still principles that our parents and grandparents taught us and are still worthy that we should be passing on to our young people, then we should not shy away and say, well, you know what, it's just too much a part of our society, so let's just roll with it. I teach at a university, and I constantly tell my students things that they don't want to hear, including wearing their hats backwards, by the way. And I tell them how wrong and how stupid I think that looks. But I won't stand down, because there are things that I've been taught by my parents and grandparents that I think are still relevant to us as a society. And if we don't fight that fight, then we have no hope.
Yeah, Lanny, I seriously, I have so much respect for you, and you make such great and valid points. I thank you for that, because I think that we lose a lot of respect for our elder generation and what they've passed on. I love and respect my parents, and I try to honor them with what they've taught me, and I try to uphold it to the best of my ability. I'm not perfect, nobody is, but yeah, I think we need to do a better job. We've let go of a lot of things that are meaningful, and they've become less relevant or significant. Like you said, gathering around to watch the World Series just in case.
Jason, I let me just tell you this as well. I do high school sports in Pittsburgh. I do the Pony League World Series every year in Washington, Pennsylvania, and it involves 13 and 14-year-olds. Do you know that the 13 and 14-year-olds put an UV glove in their back pockets? Okay.
What is it?
An UV glove, which major league players do all the time. They're allegedly their sliding glove that they put in their back pocket.
Yep.
These kids at 13 and 14 put this UV glove in their back pocket because they see major league players do it. They wear their sunglasses on their hats, and no intention to wear the sunglasses, but they put them on their hats because they see major leaguers put them on their hats. And that's my point about when we know something is wrong, when we know something is just for show, and then we need to correct it. If we don't, we got no hope. We have no chance.
Well, I can understand. I mean, and again, you can't fault the kid for looking up and idolizing the way that, Fernando Tatis plays the game flat.
Yeah, but Jason, if you're the coach of a 13, 14-year-old, why can't you say to that kid, take those sunglasses off your hat? Because what happens if you dive for a ball and those sunglasses break and poke your eye out?
Well,
aren't you supposed to be, as the coach, the man that says, that's ridiculous, that's stupid, take them off? I mean, that's going to
To
impact
a
this young
certain
person.
degree, though, Lanny, I think, when you get bent out of shape about it, is it really, that's where I think we have to decipher as a grown adult. Is it really detrimental, or are you just getting worked up because it's your opinion?
Yeah, I think. Well,
It-
let me ask you this question: how many people? I get this all the time at Waynesburg. Okay, I have my students using the I don't know if I should say it on the air here. They use the word freaking. Okay, they use it all the time. Okay, and that's wrong because we know what that mean. We know what that word stands for.
yeah.
And every time you say that word, the people are thinking the bad word. And is that bad word wrong for anybody to use? It's an ugly word. Is it wrong to use that word? You're damn right it is wrong to use that word. But the fact of the matter is, I mean, I'm in a country club. I hear that word all the time, and there are women in the room. We know that's wrong, but we say, oh, hey, we're just being men. I don't buy that. I don't buy that.
You make some good points, man. Like I said, I got much love and respect for you, and that's what makes the world go round, man. It makes the world go round. It's wonderful. That's why there's these talk shows, right? It's just getting everybody's opinion. And some people will go 100%. I'm a Lanny fan. I agree with everything he says.
I'm not,
They might disagree with everything I say. It's okay. You know what I mean?
Hey, if you don't believe in morality, okay, and I'm not telling you that I'm holier than thou. I'm not trying to make you believe that I have never sinned. But the fact of the matter is, if we don't teach our young people that there's a moral compass that we should at least know exists, then what happens when the student that I'm teaching now become parents and they basically have thrown everything out the window that was so valuable to that greatest generation that fought World War II?
Yeah. Listen, man, it's we've definitely circled the bases tonight. I can say that. Whether they're big, small, medium, or large, we've covered some bases tonight, boys. Huh? And I like it. I think it's great. A lot of good topics.
I mean, and the reality, guys, is that, and I'm sorry if I dominated some of this conversation, but the point of the matter is, I'm going to be dead in 6 years, okay? And I'd like to believe that
That is a wild outlook.
Well, it's my dad died at the age of 80. Okay, I'm 74 years old. So what have I got? 8 years, 10 years, whatever. The fact of the matter is that
I'm 34.
I'd like to believe that my time on this earth was of some value, not only in terms of my kids and my grandchildren, but this time that I connected with Pirate fans. I'm so touched when I meet Pirate fans that used to listen to me on the air. I'm so
You have an
thrilled.
amazing voice. You're very you were made to do this, Lanny, and I love.
I tell him this all the time. His voice is just never forgotten.
So wonderful to hear you talk, and it is. Listening to you talk, what it's about, you have a talent, and you were able to use it. So, God love you for it, for devoting time to baseball. I love your passion. I love chucking it up. It reminds me of being in the clubhouse. That's what I miss the most, is having this forum. And some guy would just sit and listen. And again, sorry you guys if Lanny and I maybe did, but we were chucking it up pretty good. And that's how sometimes it was in the clubhouse or on the plane. It could have been a debate between a player and a media guy. I've seen some intense stuff. And you know what? It's because if modern day gladiatorism, I guess I would call it, you look at whatever sport, it's what's permissible without actually killing somebody. You're just trying to kill the guy's spirit or take his soul away by striking him out or hitting a home run off of him. And we get, as fans, I'm a fan now too, I get caught up in it because it's a feeling. You go, oh man, and it's like, you don't know. People always say, what was it like to be a player? I said, I can't even describe to you. The best way I come up with it is kind of funny. I said, it's like taking a blend of The Wizard of Oz and blending it with Revenge of the Nerds. That's the only thing I could come up with, those two movies, to say what it's like. And it has nothing to do with it or everything to do with it because it's so confusing. Obviously, on this conversation, constantly changing. There's so much. Nothing's constant, and I think that's what makes it great. Is because this game is something we all care about. We would all love to try it, change it, make as much money as we could with it, have that World Series champagne moment with it. Even some of the bad moments. I think a lot of guys now that you're retired, we remember more of the pain moments. Like I gave up 4 home runs in Toronto in 1 inning, very painful experience, than we do even some of the greatest highlights we've had on the field. And it's because that pain and some of which those topics that pain us to watch something that we're so passionate about, like don't change it, man, don't change it. It was so good, right? It's like the show that you watch and you watch 3 seasons and season 4 absolutely sucked. It's like, why'd you change the show? You killed this character off, or something happened, and you're like, I wanted to see more of that. And Lanny, like I said, I hope you live more than the 6 years you got, because you're going to see a lot more. And it's stuff that you're going to go, don't change this because it was so good. But somebody may say, but it's so good for me now because it's what you know, right? And I think if you just love and respect it and respect those that came before you that paved the way, I respect the hell out of the guys that went on strike or were locked out, like my father being included in that, because they fought for us to have it better instead of just eating potato chips and whatever they used to serve the players. Tony Palatucci is a good friend of mine in Pittsburgh, the best chef in the big leagues, serving us prime rib. And I was sitting there at Derek Lee going like, how did we get here, man? We were one game after the Pirates were sitting in the lunchroom eating surf and turf, and it was just like we're still in our uniforms. I'm like, we're so lucky, we're so blessed, to have that. So what came before that? It's all the people that paved the way for us, and there is appreciation. I don't want people to think that players who make ungodly amounts of money, very fortunate to be in that position. But you know what? Damn it, you can't blame somebody for having been blessed with so much talent, having to work through as hard as they do. I mean, we glorify them, but they're human beings too. Take that money away, they have families, they have kids, they have all kinds of the same problems that we do. And like I said, you can't be mad at them. You're mad. I praised a woman at the bank the other day. It was a nice day out. She was driving a Porsche. I said, "You worked hard for that, didn't you?" I said, "Congratulations." She goes, "I did." And I was praising her for it. But some people sit there and go, "Oh, look at her! Or look at this guy." Some people might have worked real hard for it. They deserve that. You know what I mean? So I think we have to look ourselves in the mirror sometimes and check
Or you hit a
ourselves.
deer with your Benny Mustang.
What's that?
It says you hit a deer with your Mustang 8 days after you get it.
I did. A very human moment. You know what I mean?
Well, I am well past my bedtime, and if I'm going to live another 6 years, I better say goodnight.
Hey,
Hey,
man.
can you give us, Lanny, real quick? Can you, for like fan nostalgia over here, can you give us your opening intro when you used to go on air and the closer, maybe the home run?
Well,
I've
all right.
never asked you for it, Lane.
Well, years ago I started. I started by my broadcast by saying hi, friends, and a very pleasant good evening, because I learned, because I made, when I was a Pirate broadcaster, I made 50 appearances every winter to communities in Pittsburgh, and so I was convinced that a good number of people that were listening to my broadcasts were people that I already came in contact with, and therefore became friends of mine. And I was fortunate that I had some great teams that I announced for the '79 Pirates, and then I told you earlier that one of my best friends in baseball is Jim Leland, and I was there with him when he marched through 90, 91, 92, and there was some pain involved in that. But I learned a lot about Jimmy, that being a champion wasn't automatically meant that you were a winner all the time, that sometimes in sports we learn more from losing than we do from winning. And I know that there are some people that think maybe that's naive, but I don't believe that. So I had some great calls, and I used to yell, "Go ball, get out of here" for a Pirate home run, And at the end of games, I used to say when the Pirates won, there was no doubt about it, even though many times there was. And the reason I did that was because Bob Prince used to say at the end of Pirate games, we had them all the way. So my no doubt about it was an indirect tribute to Bob and what he did with Pirate baseball. But Bob taught me that when you were a Pirate announcer, you were more than just a voice on the air. That you had to meet people and be out there among them, and that was the best piece of advice I could have gotten from anybody, because I had a chance to meet so many wonderful Pirate fans, and as I said, I still come in contact with them. So that's my story.
It's a
What
good.
was your favorite? What was your favorite pirate all time watching?
Well, one of my best friends in the game, I mentioned Leland, is Kent Tekulve. As a matter of fact, Kent Tekulve's wife Linda is godmother for our daughter Megan. Um, I loved watching Doug Drabeck pitch. He was my all-time favorite pitcher. And one of the reasons I loved watching Doug Drabeck pitch was because he pitched quickly. He got the ball and he threw it, and got done with games in a hurry. When we won in 1990, the clincher between Doug Drabeck and Joe McGrain, that game was 2 hours and 1 minute, and that was our clincher in 1990. I love being around Willie Stargell. I love being around Dave Parker. They're just fortunate that I had a chance to get to know these people a little bit more than just player broadcaster.
Lanny, it sounds like you're part of media that I'd like to hang out with. If we had a quick game, I'd like to see what you did after the game because you'd like those quick games. So I want to know where you were going.
Well, maybe I shouldn't tell you this, Jason, but I am a 3-time. I have been in alcohol rehab 3 times in my life. Fortunately, my latest bout of sobriety is 3 years. I've been sober for 3 years now. I'm a regular member at the Alcoholics Anonymous meetings. But the game of baseball, I learned that one of the few ways to deal with road trips was to drink, and unfortunately, it did me in. Fortunately, I didn't kill anybody. Fortunately, I didn't hurt anybody, and my wife and my children survived my drinking. But so I've experienced the ups and downs of the baseball life, and I feel very blessed that I was a part of it for 33 years.
And you have a story to tell, and like I said, you're a legend, and I'm glad that we have you. The passion is in Pittsburgh.
Jay, I tell him this all the time, and he shakes his head, like, even from a fan perspective. You were on the field.
Great accolades about him, but you know what, man? Sometimes you're deserving of it, so take it, Lanny.
Well, here's the thing. And I was reminded of this when Vin Scully died. Vin Scully is the greatest broadcaster that God ever created. And I was reminded that you can't be a legend unless you're going to leave a legacy. So if I'm a legend, then at some point somebody's going to have to point out what did Lanny leave as his legacy.
I guarantee there's a lot of people that would say that and know that. The people that love you the most would say that, man. But thank you for being vulnerable and open and honest. And man, I tell you, at the end of this day, going back, I know we've been on here for quite some time, and my eyes are burning too. This is past my bedtime.
All right, guys. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the time, fellas.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you guys. You guys make the show. Well,
it was great meeting you guys, man. I think Alex might have froze.
Alex, what'd you think?
Man, that was epic. I wanted to ask Lenny if he had the inside scoop of Brian Reynolds to the Marlins.
He needs. Hey, he needs to come to Baltimore, baby. We need that bat in the middle of the order.
That's funny.
That's gonna help us beat the Mets in the World Series this year.
Oh man, I don't know. They didn't get Correa.
Hey, Alex, I wanted to ask you though, man. I know there's been a lot of rumors going on, and I know I'm gonna let you go, man. And I know we all got some stuff we gotta do in the morning. Pablo Lopez has been a hot trade talk, hot in the trade talks, especially with Baltimore. What do you think, as a hypothetical, Pablo Lopez, the Baltimore trade would consist of?
Uh, Pablo got shipped to Minnesota. The
Oh,
Miami
he
Marlins struck a
did.
deal with. They
I
struck
did
a
not
deal with
know
him.
that. I thought he was still in Miami.
No, they traded him
Oh,
about a week and a half ago. And
I had
basically, what
no
happened?
idea. Oh,
We
I've been working a lot, man. Like
no,
I was
And
well,
the
no
whole
I
worries. I'll
plumbing
tell you what the trade
situation at your
was.
house.
This
and
is what
I yeah I,
the trade was. The trade was Pablo Lopez, Jose Salas, a top prospect in the Marlins minors. He was a middle infielder, and um, and then another minor leaguer, Brian Chorino, an outfielder, a 17-year-old guy. So they got in exchange for the American League batting champion Luis Arraez. Arraez went to the Marlins, so now the
wow,
Marlins have.
that's not a bad trade at all.
So you got a
Yeah,
second
man,
baseman finally.
they got a second baseman. And with that being said, the general manager came out and said that Jazz Chisholm, the All Star from last year that played second base for the Marlins, is going to make a transition out to center field. And Jazz is all hyped up about it. He said, "Hey, I'm going to go out there and I'll go win a Gold Glove. If we can't get Reynolds, count me in." So it looks like we got Jazz in center field to start opening day. At least
Hey,
that's the plan.
Al,
Alex, are you trying to go to the NHL All Star game? It is in your backyard.
Oh man, hey, I love going to a Cats game, man. The best part is when you get a beer, it always stays cold. It's a nice freezer in there.
No, I meant, are you going to try and get? Are you going to the All Star game at all? It is in
Nah, man,
Florida.
yeah, I would, but it's kind of pricey right now. I'd rather go to the World Baseball Classic. You know what I'm saying? I got more passion about the baseball.
hey, it was
How many
great
games
meeting
you
you
going
again,
to?
Alex. Adam, I have got to wake up at 3:45, man, so I am out.
Hey,
Yeah,
take it
we
easy,
ever do
man.
any more shows, Alex, you're more than welcome to come on anytime. You know that.
Word, man. Well, it was a pleasure meeting you guys. Thanks for having me on, and I'll see you next time.
Alrighty, guys. Thank you, Alex, for popping by. Thank you.
All right, man. Take it easy.
Alrighty. Hey, we're gonna end the show here today. That's all we got, and I hope you enjoyed the show. Um, hopefully, we're gonna be doing more baseball. Everybody, have a good night.